Welcome. We're going to be doing overview lessons 41 to 44. Can you believe it? We're in the 40s. How did your children like the math balance? Did they put their weights on number 10? If not, let me know because it's so unusual. So let's find out what materials will be needed for this week. You'll need your abacus, worksheets, a hexagon. Now this is one of the geometry panels. You can use this, or you could use one of the hexagons from lesson 39, the math balance, the dry erase board, your tiles, the geometry reflector. This is also something new. You haven't used this one yet. We'll talk more about that soon. The geoboard, coins, and then some scissors. Lesson 45 is partitioning 5 on the math balance. This is a fun one. Again, because we get to use the balance. All right, so we're going to partition 5 on the balance. Now I already put the 5 there, but you would hand it to your child, tell them to put 5 on the left side, and give them 2 more weights and ask them to get it to balance. And that's it. Don't give them any more information. Let them discover this on their own. And they're going to most likely do something like this, which that doesn't work. And just like before, if they want to move the 4 around, try in different places, it's not working, then we have them stop and let's move the 10. So maybe they'll try, because they haven't really understood the clue or the secret to the balance. And when they get it, it will balance. And also be careful, because sometimes kids will want to move the weights before the balance has had time to balance or unbalance itself. So now it's balanced. How does this work? Well, they should know by now that 1 and 4 make 5. This may be a little confusing for some kids seeing it on the balance. Go ahead and get out the abacus and have them show it on the abacus, something that's familiar, and then they can connect the two. Then they're going to write the equation on the dry erase board. We're going to start with 5, and then we're going to make the equal sign or the equal symbol. And you talk to them about how the equal sign is written as 2 parallel lines. Now, what I love about the balance, and I would point this out to the children after they've had time to explore, is if you look here, I'm going to move this forward, it's like an equal sign right here. Let me see if you can see it better. There we go. It's like an equal sign. I love it. So I'll tell the kids what's on this side equals what's on this side. And then you're going to ask them to find a different way to make 5 balance. They'll have the opportunity to do that. Then you're going to move this to 6. And again, they're going to work on different ways to partition 6. So notice at the bottom of the lesson book, you're going to work with partitioning other numbers. Then there's this doubles mystery. Make this a challenge, make it fun. So you're going to ask them this question. You might want to even consider having a little prize or a treat involved. You don't want to tell them the answer. Make them think overnight. And maybe later on in the evening, you might remind them, hey, and remind them of what the question is. And when you come back for class, then you guys get to talk about it. And if they are able to give you an answer, they get a treat. And maybe they'll get a treat just for trying too. It's up to you. Lesson 42, doubles and writing equations. So at the end of the first page, there's a game that's play the continue the pattern game, where you're just giving your children 3 numbers that are in order, like 6, 7, 8, and then they have to tell you the next 3. This, I can't even tell you, this is such an important game. So simple, so important. We don't want children to have to count. So if you say 3, 4, 5, we don't want them to have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We don't want that. We want them to be able to, you say 3, 4, 5, and they'll say 6, 7, 8. Such an important concept. You get to use the math balance again. You're going to work with doubles on the math balance. This is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go through the trouble of, pulling out the math balance and showing it to you. But basically, you're going to let them know where to put the 2 weights. So you hand them 2 weights, you say put both of these on the 1. Then you give them a 3rd weight, and then they have to figure out which one it goes on. Now, some of them will know 1 plus 1 is 2. Some of them will not. So they might hang the weight on various pegs. That's okay. Let them do that until they get it right. And the beauty of the math balance is you don't have to tell them it's right or wrong. It'll let them know when it balances. Then, after it balances, they get to write this equation. This is the lesson where that term equation is introduced. The equation 1 plus 1 equals 2 has been referred to in times past, and maybe even now, as a number sentence. That is not a word we want to use. We want to call it an equation. Notice in the explanation for the teachers, it gives you a nice little explanation why. One of them has to do with the fact that equation comes from the word equal. And that's what we're wanting children to understand. Just like in lesson 41, when you saw how those little blue lines on the balance can represent equal sign. So the child is seeing that what is done on one side, something similar has to be done on the other side. There has to be balance. That's what makes it equal. And that's what gives us the equation. Lesson 43, ellipse and folding shapes. Lots of little activities to do in this lesson. If you notice on that first page, I want to draw your attention to the top of the second page where you're going to pull out the worksheet. Your child's going to cut out these figures, and then you're going to have them fold them. Out of these 4 figures, 3 of them your child should know what the names are. That last one is a new term. It's an ellipse. So the child is learning the term ellipse. And a lot of times we want to call that shape an oval. And while an ellipse can be an oval, not all ovals can be an ellipse. Yeah. And needing to know the difference at this age is probably not important. However, you may want to know just for yourself, because maybe you didn't realize that there are 2 different shapes. There is a website, mathisfun.com, and you can look up the term ellipse, and it gives you a great illustration of what an ellipse is. And it's written and designed for children, not necessarily kindergarten age, but for young children. So if you want to know more about it or try to get your own understanding, you could always go there and check it out. And it's okay if you don't, as long as your child knows that this is an ellipse. All right. This is the geometry reflector. This is a tool that you'll be using. You can see through it. And it reflects. Look, it's reflecting me on the screen. So I'll show you how you use it. So this is a square that I cut out myself. It's not from the lesson. I already folded it in half one way. One of the things in the lesson is the child's going to see there's some shapes they can fold more than one way. I'm not going to fold this again, but I'm using this to show you how to use the reflector. Now I have the reflector at the top, and you have it laying on the line. So really it's basically cutting the shape in half. But then when you look through the reflector, it reflects, but you can still see through to the other side. You can see my hand. Here's the other piece of paper. Here's this side, and then if I lift this up, you can see it reflecting off of even my hand. You can see it reflecting off. So just play around with it. You'll have other opportunities to get to use it. This is a little bit easier because you have the two sides. We have another lesson coming up where we're going to use it on the geo board. So we'll see how that works. Last lesson for this week, lesson 44, pennies and reflections. So one of the materials that's new this week is the coins. I have mine in the container here. I notice I don't have as many clay pennies as I think I should have. These coins have been through some years with my children. And honestly, this is great to have, but I prefer using real coins. So if you have real coins and you want to use them, use them. That's my preference. But Right Start does offer the plastic coins. And so you have an option. Today, your child's going to learn about the penny, learn about a cent. I don't know, kids seem to just love learning about money, especially when there's like real coins that they could play with. There's part of the activity where you're going to lay out a variety of coins and you're just asking your child to pick out the pennies because you've already shown him what a penny is. And so you don't need to explain to your child what all the other coins are. That's really up to you. If you'd like to tell them what they are, you can. I feel like it could be a little bit confusing right now if a child doesn't know all the different names. So honestly, I think it's best just to focus on the penny until they really truly understand what the penny is. And then as we move into other lessons, they'll be learning more about a nickel and they'll be learning more about a dime. But just keep that focus on the penny for this lesson. In this lesson, they're going to use the geo board. And so I'm going to just mimic what they're asking you to do in the lesson because I want to also show how to use a reflector with this. So you're going to place a rubber band on your geo board like this. This is going to be our line of reflection. And that is one of the terms that will be taught in this lesson. So you're going to make a triangle on one side of the reflection line. Now, you could ask the child, what shape is this? It's a triangle. You know, just ask some questions if you want or not. You could just say, okay, I have a triangle on this side. Now I'm going to reflect it on the other side of the line. So if you do it correctly, it's going to reflect. Now I'm going to do it a way that it's going to show that it's not reflecting. This way is not reflecting. It looks just like this side. So we copied it, that's great, but we want it to reflect. So notice up here, when you want it to reflect, it's gonna come this way because it's almost like this folds over. And so like the farther point is over here. And your straight line is right here. This is just your line of reflection. If this line wasn't here and these two were touching each other, you can see how you could fold one over. That's how we reflect. So I took one of the triangles off. There's only one. If I put the reflector on here, but you can see it reflected on the other side. Sorry, I'll try not to be distracting. You can see it reflected. It's really hard to, okay, there we go. It's not there. That's the reflection. It's pretty cool how this works because there's nothing there. Now it looks like there is. That's its reflection. I don't have it straight, sorry. This is not there. So now you can see its reflection. So it's pretty cool how this works. We did it. We made it through another week. How fun is it using the reflector and getting to use the balance more. I hope you guys have a lot of fun. And next week, we're going to go over lessons 45 through 48. Until then.